Bungie has just released their weekly update, announcing the next faction rally and detailing what they're doing to exotic weapons in the next patch, giving the specific example of how they're buffing the Graviton Lance, which frankly will blow you away. So let's get started with the video. What is up, guys? Rick Kakas here, and today we have some brand spankin' new Destiny 2 news courtesy of the just released Bungie weekly update. And so, again, let's get started. Now, first things first, Bungie officially announced the next faction rally hitting Destiny 2. And it's happening pretty soon. Next week, in fact, on the reset of Tuesday, February 20th at 9 a.m. Pacific, the next faction rally will have officially begun. Now, this new faction rally also comes with a few changes. Last time, Bungie actually put a cap on how many tokens you could earn in a given time frame, limiting how many lost sectors you could plunder. But now there has been an update to that. There is no cap, according to Bungie, and every time you go back in the same lost sector, the boss will respawn. So you can farm lost sectors as fast as you can kill those bosses. So great news for farmers, great news for all of us, frankly. There should in no way be caps on your success in Destiny 2. Now, unfortunately, the cap on tokens wasn't the only negative thing about the last faction rally. One of the huge community complaints was that there was literally one new sidearm, the same sidearm for every single faction. The only new weapons were the prize weapons. Bungie's plan was to add the prize weapons into the loot pool every time going forward, meaning that the third or fourth faction rally would become playable, but the ones before then simply wouldn't. Thankfully, Bungie has addressed this. So, they've outlined the new weapons coming and earnable in this next faction rally via the faction engrams you get every time you turn in enough tokens to level up your picked faction. So firstly, these three auto rifles, the same three auto rifles that were the prize weapons, are being added into the loot pool. This is frankly good news. The Dead Orbit auto rifle specifically is actually one that piqued my interest. I'm definitely going to try to earn that. But again, that was the plan. But these other three weapons, a new Dead Orbit linear fusion rifle, a future war cult hand cannon, and a new Monarchy scout rifle, are also being added to the loot pool. So you can earn all 6 of these brand new weapons, except for the new Monarchy auto rifle that isn't technically new because it was the awarded prize weapon. But that is some definite good news that Bungie isn't just going forward with their plan, that they're adding 3 additional brand new weapons on top of that to definitely spice up the loot pool. So those are the weapons earnable from the vendors, but what about the prize weapons? For anyone not in the know, prize weapons are awarded if your faction by the end of the faction event has the most tokens turned into it. It's available for everyone at 50,000 Glimmer, but if you did pledge to the winning faction, it's only 1,000 Glimmer. Well, for New Monarchy, we have this new Kinetic pulse rifle. Looking at the stats, it is a high impact pulse rifle, but it does come with high caliber rounds and rampage. This is looking pretty good. Moving on from there, we have Dead Orbit's prize weapon with this new Kinetic pulse rifle. This is a very unique pulse rifle because it's the first kinetic one of its damage archetype of 360 rounds per minute. The only other weapons in this archetype are energy weapons like the inaugural Address raid pulse rifle. And lastly, we have Future War Cult's prize weapon with this Kinetic scout rifle. It belongs to the highest damaging archetype and has snapshot and pretty average perks. Now, moving on from there, we have a bunch of news about what Bungie refers to as an exotic pass. A look at all of the exotic weapons within Destiny 2 and significant buffs to a lot of them. Bungie went into detail about what this would actually entail. So, firstly, Bungie's goals for this exotic pass, which will affect exotic weapons and armor, are the following. Number 1, tuning pass on exotic gear focused on adding and or increasing player power spikes. Number 2, focusing on low usage items, but all items are being considered. Number 3, lean into an item's established gameplay and push it harder. Avoid catch-all improvements that dilute item identity. And frankly, these 3 things are sorely needed in Destiny 2. So many exotics, you get them and they go in your vault or they get dismantled and you never use them. A lot of the armor is just completely useless, especially compared to the Destiny 1 counterparts, giving you extra grenades and incredibly useful abilities. The armor has been watered down substantially. Weapons too, there are definitely a few usable exotic weapons, something like the Cold Heart, something like the Wardcliff Coil. Those exotics have a lot of utility, but way too many have none. So Bungie saying that they're finally going to go and increase the power potential of exotics is fantastic news, but what does that actually mean? Well, Bungie did give a specific example of a weapon they're buffing and the buffs that are going to come. Well, that weapon is the Graviton Lance. The Graviton Lance is a pretty unique exotic pulse rifle that you got for a campaign reward. Most people have this weapon. It's very cool looking, especially with the new Crimson Days ornament, but it sees virtually no play. Here are the changes Bungie is going to enact on this weapon, and these are pretty insane. So, the functional concept of the Graviton Lance was a weapon that fires 2 Cosmic Void rounds to create 0 air resistance and follow up with a super high powered round that would knock the target back and cause them to explode. The player feedback Bungie received was, looks great, sounds great, neat explosion, but I can't get kills in PvP because all of the damage is at the end of the burst, it kicks too hard for a follow-up burst, and I can't reliably damage targets with the explosion because the ragdoll body I killed will fly back away from my enemies and then explode. So firstly, Bungie is going to reduce the recoil of a burst of Graviton Lance, and added some aim assist. In addition to that, they're also going to make the Graviton Lance fire in bursts of 2-round burst weapon, and that's actually going to give it a mathematical edge against other pulse rifles in the Crucible. So right there, the Graviton Lance is going to get some pretty big increases in playability. But there's more. Instead of having the enemies that you kill ragdoll away from other enemies and then explode, enemies you kill will now float up into the air and then do the explosion. This makes it much more likely that you're actually going to be able to damage a nearby teammate with the explosion you cause for killing an enemy. But the explosion itself is also bigger, they are going to increase the damage, and they added some void field projectiles that seek out any remaining targets. Somewhat like the Siva Swarms of the Outbreak Prime. Okay, all of these changes combined, so it has less recoil, it shoots in 2-round bursts, so it's actually going to kill faster. It's going to have seeking projectiles when you get a kill on an enemy, and that enemy is going to have a massive explosion and gonna stay where they are. Guys, the Graviton Lance is gonna be insane. Like, that is some huge changes, and if this is the kind of thing they're doing to exotics, that's fantastic. Like, I can't wait to see what they do to the Fighting Lion, for example, to the Skyburner's Oath. In fact, John Wesniewski, who is the PvP lead, tweeted out that they're having pretty insane battles in their test environment for PvP with Graviton Lances versus the Skyburner's Oaths. So the Skyburners is also going to see some massive buffs. We don't know what those are just yet. But not every exotic weapon is getting a buff. Bungie stated that the weapons not being touched by this exotic pass are the Merciless, the Telesto, the Wardcliff Coil, the Mida Multitool, the Colony, the Legend of Acreus, and the Vigilance Wing, stating specifically that the Vigilance Wing is becoming a lot better with the next balance update where they're buffing pulse rifles entirely. Now, most of this list does make sense. The Merciless is already fantastic in PvE, so is the Wardcliff Coil. Mida Multitool certainly doesn't need a buff, I think most people would agree about that. The Colony is ridiculously good, frankly. The Legend is also pretty darn good. I don't know about the Telesto being on there. Telesto does not see a lot of play, so I don't know why it doesn't deserve a buff. But lastly, Bungie does state, quote, "We'll be back soon to talk about Masterwork exotics as well." So it looks like potentially even next weekly update, they'll finally touch on what Masterwork exotics are and how they function in the sandbox. But, you know, very interesting information. Just listening to those Graviton Lance changes, that is insane. And if that, again, that degree of change is being applied to all of the exotics that aren't seeing play, wow, we're going to have a pretty diverse number of exotics to utilize when this patch does hit. And so guys, that is it for all of today's Destiny 2 news. Now if you guys enjoyed the video, found it informative, please remember to support it by simply rating and especially sharing this video. Another way to support myself and the channel, check out the official merch linked in the description down below. Now if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.